Look at this thing. That is what the road salt does to them up north. Whew, goodness gracious. That thing's bad. Hey there, internet peoples. I'm Matt. Welcome back to the Southern Motorworks channel here on YouTube. Today we're back working on the Volvo XC70 over here. We're going to be giving her a little bit of a change in attitude by giving her a little change in altitude, so to speak here. So we're going to be working on upgrading the suspension a little bit of modifications, and some new parts, kind of rejuvenate her a little bit suspension-wise. So that being said, we'll get you in here and we'll show you what we're working on with the specific parts that we're going to be using, the kit that we're going to be using or whatever. Yeah, let's get started. Alright, so like I said, we're going to be working on upgrading the suspension a little bit, doing some modifications to it. So what we're going to be looking at is brand new struts front and rear, and 20 millimeter or 30 millimeter? 30 millimeter lift blocks for the front and the rear, so kind of give us a little bit more ground clearance in between here. Now this side over here you can see is she's a little collapsed, just a little bit. All right, so the new strut's going to lift it up slightly, but then we're going to have another 30 millimeters of clearance on top of that, so that should be plenty of clearance for these oh, what are those, 225/70s? I think so, 225/70 16s on there. And if we want to go to a slightly bigger tire in the future, we'll probably have room for that also. But let's show you what parts we're going to be looking at here. So we've got our FCS Auto complete strut assemblies here. It's just easier that way. You know, you can buy just the springs or whatever and, you know, disassemble the original struts, and yeah, it's just too much trouble. I've done it before. It's kind of a pain sometimes, so for simplicity's sake and time's sake, we're just going to be using complete strut assemblies here. So we've got these, we've got the bearings to go on top for the front, and in the back here we've got the same thing from FCS Auto, the rear strut assemblies, and from Auto Acer, part number 22 PU 602, 30 millimeter spacer kit for Volvos. These should work for XC70s, V70s, things like that. And so complete kit comes with the extended hardware you're going to use for the top hats on the struts and stuff. So you can see it's a nice polyurethane lift puck like that, so that fits over the top of the spring assembly. You can see the same thing with this one, so should be pretty good. It looks like some pretty good quality stuff. So we will get the camera all set up here, and we'll go ahead and start knocking these wheels and tires off so we can get a look at this old wore out suspension that we're going to be removing. Set them over here next to these Nokian studs for the Mercedes there that we'll probably have no more use for. Can't use those in Florida for anything. Oh, hello.
Yeah, that's cool.
Huh. The things that you find whenever you go to perform one job on a vehicle, you know. I don't know if y'all can tell or not on the TV, but that's coolant under there. So somehow we've developed some sort of coolant leak just sitting there, but we'll have to investigate that a little further here. Okay, so after a little further investigation on that coolant leak under the vehicle, we can show you here. It's actually, and can you hear me a light? It's actually the water pump leaking under there. I don't know if y'all can see, if I can get y'all in there good enough, but right in there, the water pump, and of course you have to take all these covers and everything else off, and power steering reservoir's in the way, and the coolant reservoir, and all this, that, and the other, because, you know, sideways engine. So, but the water pump is seeping. So now we will, I guess, be replacing a water pump before she's back on road. So we'll get one of those ordered, probably from Rock Auto. Shouldn't cost too awful much from there. But we'll get that on there and get that ordered, I should say. And hopefully that'll be here in a few days. And we may include that on this video. I don't know, maybe on the next video. But for now, since we're already running out of daylight, you know, working on this project after the day job every day, you know. But for now, we're going to go on ahead and just get back to work on the suspension, and we will deal with that whenever the parts come in, I reckon. Alright, so the first thing we're going to be doing is pulling the brake caliper off here on the passenger side front. So first off, we're going to be removing our little dust caps here over the brake caliper slide bolts. We'll be dropping the caliper out of the way, and then that way we can begin to get the rest of the suspension off here and stuff to be able to replace this wore out strut here. We're going to go ahead and start soaking these bolts down with our PB blaster here, just to try to ease in disassembly whenever we get to taking those off. As you can see, they've gotten quite corroded from being up north and all that stuff. So we're going to put a little penetrating oil on there, and hopefully that'll help us release those a little bit cleaner when it comes time to take it off. Okay, these particular brake calipers here, they have this little wire piece on here that you gotta pop off, or pop forward I should say, in order to be able to pull the brake caliper off. So we're gonna go ahead and finagle that around, and it just pops off like that there. Now we should be able to release this caliper. We don't need to compress it or anything really, because I mean, I guess we can, just to make it come off a little easier. That's all you need. We're not replacing the pads or anything, so it doesn't need a whole bunch of space to come out of there. Alright, we're going to hang that right up here over the top of the CV axle for now. Never let your caliper dangle in the air by the brake line like that. Especially if she's high mileage. It's a good way to bust a brake line, and then you're in a whole nother world of hurt. Okay, now the next thing we're going to be doing is removing the nut here for our CV axle. Chrome socket on the impact, because I like to live dangerously. Doesn't even have enough oomph in it anyway to pull it out of there. Or does it? There we go. Now, we'll install that just a hair in there, so we can give the impact a couple, or the, oh, never mind, don't even have to. Don't even have to. See folks, this is why you always use some copper anti-seize or something like that on your CV joints and grooves and stuff, especially if you live up north. But look at that, she just pushes right out of there. Okay, so next we're going to work on getting this attempt to start getting these bolts out of the way here for this first strut. We're just going to keep on soaking them down in this PB blaster in the hopes that this stuff will actually come loose. We'll see. We'll see how she does. work on this sway bar end link here. All right, so as you can see, we're just about out of usable daylight here again. The joys of, you know, trying to do projects after the day job every day. But anyway, we're still working on disassembling this one side, getting this initial strut off. But we'll pick this up tomorrow afternoon after we get home from the day job, and we'll continue on. This one of the rusty bolts on the sway bar end link there's fighting us a little bit, so we might have to stop by the local parts store tomorrow and try to find us something to aid us in that job there. But anyway, we'll pick this up tomorrow, and we'll continue on getting this first strut done with the lift on the passenger side front here. All right. Okay, so it's the following day. We've actually moved locations here. We're up in the carport out in front of the house because we've got some decent rain coming in here this afternoon for like today and tomorrow here in Panhandle. So we did a little bit of work off camera, just some kind of boring, tedious stuff. We actually kind of had to end up cutting some stuff off dealing with all this rust, but we'll get y'all in there and show you what we did off camera real quick. So unfortunately, this thing was so rusty, as you can see by the bottom of the strut tower and everything. This thing was so rusty, the tie rod end would not come loose no matter what I did. So we actually ended up having to cut that off there. Same thing with the end of the sway bar end link, which these pieces are wore out anyway. So we have some new pieces coming from Rock Auto. Should be here this coming week, I believe. But we'll just put new tie rod in. I mean, as you can see, they're kind of wore out anyway. So we'll just put new parts on there. But we have the rest of the stuff busted loose, the bolts that hold the bottom of the strut and everything in there. So we're about ready to go ahead and pop this steering knuckle off the bottom of the strut, and then we can go up top side here and take the 3 bolts off to hold the strut in. So we'll get the camera set up here. We'll go ahead and bust these last couple bolts loose on the steering knuckle and get this old wore out strut out of there. All right, so we got these last 2 bolts here to finish taking off. We already busted them loose, so we just gotta finish backing them out real quick here. It's just these 2 here and here. It's 2 big old 18mm bolts that clamp onto the steering or onto the bottom of the strut through the steering knuckle here. And it kind of replaces your upper ball joint like you would traditionally have on most vehicles. Okay, and also make sure that you take loose the small 8mm bolt in here that holds the I believe it's the ABS line there or something like that. Speed sensor rather. Make sure you take that loose and you don't almost, you know, rip it out of there like I almost did. Yeah. Yep, wheel speed sensor. Okay. That is it. That is loose. Now we can go up here top side and take the 3 bolts off and go ahead and get it out of here. Okay, so these are the 3 bolts I was referring to, or nuts in this case. 13mm nuts that are going to be holding the strut in place. So we'll get these off there. Make sure you, whatever you do not take this one off. That's holding the coil spring compressed. Take that off and it's going to be a bad day. Now that you have them almost completely undone, you can reach under with your left hand, support it, undo the final nut. I'll leave those right there in the drip tray. And there we go. One wore out strut, completely removed. Look at this thing. That is what the road salt does to them up north. Whew, goodness gracious. That thing's bad. Alright, so we have our old wore out strut here from the passenger side front. That's going out. And instead we're going to be putting in our FCS Auto brand new complete strut here. We just need to put our spacer on here. One more thing we did off camera was we installed these longer bolts here, the 3 nuts that we took loose from the top of the strut tower. Those original bolts are just way too short once you put a 30mm spacer on there, so we have to punch those out with a hammer and press these back up in there, and they were still kind of loose afterwards, so I just threw a couple little tack welds underneath there just to make sure that they don't move at all whenever we're trying to tighten the nuts down from the top side. So we'll go get our spacer now real quick. We'll go ahead and get this one placed up in there. Okay, so here we have our 30mm spacer that's going to be going on the top pad of the strut here. So it just slides over the longer bolts that we installed, and that's all there is to it. So now this, after we get it installed, we'll raise the front of the vehicle 30mm on there, so that's a pretty decent amount. Should give us a little bit better ground clearance for the bigger tires and whatnot. So we'll get this stuck up in there. Alright, so again, we're just going to be installing this, and this comes with brand new hardware, the Struts did. So get these all run down on there. I believe these are 13mm also. Correct, 13mm. Now I'm going to leave this a little bit loose until we get the bottom side secured onto the steering knuckle. So it gives us a little bit of play there to be able to adjust it however we need to. Okay, so now we can get you down here on the bottom. What we're going to be looking at is this needs to slide in here. Let me get a little bit better light in there. So these two holes here need to line up with these two holes on the side of the strut. Now this is going to be slightly more difficult than before. Because obviously this is sticking down 30mm further down from the top side. So what we need to do is press down on the steering knuckle like this to be able to line it up properly. Alright, so what we're going to be doing here, just using a big old pry bar, try and torque down the lower control arm and the steering knuckle to be able to line these two up here. Alright, so we finally got the first strut in. These two bolts that clamp down from the steering knuckle, goodness, trying to get them lined up. Took me, the missus, and our son standing on it to be able to push the steering knuckle down as much as we could with the big pry bar there. We was finally able to get it lined up. So these two bolts here, you will likely have some trouble with getting them bad boys lined up, but they're in there now, so we'll finish buttoning this side up, and then we'll drop it and see what the ride height's going to look like with that 30mm puck at the top.
All right, so we've about got this one buttoned up. We just need to reinstall the brake caliper real quick. But we will be, like I said, some of these parts ended up having to be cut off just because the rust was so bad. So I have brand new outer tie rod ends and sway bar end links in the mail. So for now, we're just gonna go ahead and put these together. And then whenever those come in the mail, we'll pop the wheel and tire back off and install the sway bar end link and tie rod in. But for now, we'll go ahead and put it back together so we can check the ride height and everything. The only thing I did notice about these FCS struts, they don't have a provision to hold the wheel speed sensor. Don't forget to reinstall that whenever you get done. Little wheel speed sensor down there, but they don't have a provision for that. So that's kind of, I don't know. We'll have to figure out something for that. Zip tie it somewhere to keep it out of the way, but yeah, so this one's about ready to go. Like I said, we're just going to put the brake caliper on real quick, and then we'll check the ride height. Okay, so we've got the wheel and tire all back installed. Everything's back together, like I said, minus the sway bar end link and those tire rod ends, which will be in the mail soon. So let's drop this thing and see what this ride height's going to look like. Now it's going to settle a little bit, you know, so it'll once we drive it for a few miles, it'll settle down a little bit and you know, go down just slightly. But this will give us a good idea of where we're going to be at, you know, just on average. Oh yeah, that is way better. And as you can see, that is significantly better than before. I think we had a ride height somewhere around here last time, so because those old struts were completely collapsed. So with the new struts and the 30mm spacers on the top there, that gives us way more ground clearance, wheel to, or tire, I should say, tire defender, way more ground clearance. Looks a heck of a lot better. I like that. I think that's going to work out well for us. So we'll go ahead and leave this one alone. Like I said, waiting on those parts in the mail, and we'll go ahead and move over to the other front side here, and we'll knock out that one. Alright, so we're moving on over to the other side, the driver's side front, and just noticing it's kind of funny, you can see just how bad these front struts were by looking at the top of them here. See how far that one sticks up through the top of the vehicle there versus the new one here. Yeah, so to say the least, those things were definitely worn out. So we'll move on to this driver's side here, and hopefully this one goes a little bit easier for us. We've had this one soaking in some PB blaster since yesterday, so we'll move on and go ahead and get this one busted loose. All right, let's see what we're dealing with here. Yeah, unfortunately it looks just as rusty as the other one. Look at these brake calipers here. These are definitely going to have to be replaced in the near future. All that rust from being up north. Surprised it's still functioning. But it is. Brakes work great on this vehicle. So we'll go ahead and soak her down with a little bit more PB blaster. And hopefully we can actually get this one loose and not have to cut everything. But if we do have to cut everything, it's all good. We got brand new parts in the mail. Alright, so we've got strut number 2 out from the driver's side, and this one, as you can see, is just as bad as the passenger side. These things are wore slap out. Bearings, surprisingly, on the top actually aren't too bad, but they do have a little wobble to them, so they probably ain't got much longer. But ooh, these things have seen some miles. So we'll go on ahead and move on and bust out the second one, see if we can get it stuck up in there before we call it a night. Alright, so we've got the second strut out here, and I didn't get a chance to show you all too well on the first one there, so I just wanted to show you. You may have to put a couple little tack welds on these, like this here, just on those, on the longer, the 3 bolts that actually hold the strut up inside the vehicle there. The new ones are significantly longer, and I actually ended up trimming a little bit off. I'll show y'all when I get a second here. I'll show you, but we actually ended up trimming a little bit off the top of them because they were so long. I was worried about them hitting the top of the hood whenever it closed. So but we got our new strut here. We'll go ahead and stick this one, get this one stuck up in there, and get those 3 bolts bolted on at least. Alright, so we just got the second strut up in there. A little hard to see. Unfortunately, one of my tack welds busted loose up here, so we're gonna have to fix that tomorrow. I have to take this back out and tack weld the bottom of it again, and so that we can finish tightening up that 3rd bolt there. But I think we're gonna go ahead and call it a night for tonight. We'll pick this up after work tomorrow. We'll take that strut back out real quick, tack weld it, and get it put back up in there. But so far this side's going a whole lot easier. That's usually how it goes the second side, you know, 3rd side, 4th side, whatever. It usually goes a lot smoother than the initial one once you get a, you know, a little bit of a rhythm down, you know, be able to get it done. So we're gonna go ahead and call it a night there, and we'll pick this up tomorrow afternoon. All right, so following day here, we're just working on finishing up this front driver's side strut here. We actually ended up, I thought I was gonna have to take this one off here and re-tack weld it because it kind of busted loose, but I was able to just grab a hold of it with some vice grips at the top and able to get this tightened up real well. We'll end up trimming off the extras off the top of these little bolts anyway, because they're way too long and I'm worried about them hitting the underside of the hood whenever it closes. So that being said, like I said, we're buttoning up this side, again minus the inner and outer tie rods and the sway bar end links because we have those in the mail. It should be here this week, but we are finishing up getting the last 2 bolts lined up here for the strut tower here, and then we just need to reattach the brake caliper. Didn't even take the CV axle out for this one, left that completely intact, so that's all good to go. So yeah, we'll finish getting this one lined up and get it setting on the ground so we can really see how the front's going to look after all this. Okay, so we've got those 2 bolts tightened up. We're going to go ahead and put the brake caliper back on real quick. I will say this side over here came apart a heck of a lot easier. The outer tie rod in here and the sway bar end link actually came off without too much fighting. But we got new parts in the mail, so we're just going to go ahead and replace them anyway. So. Okay, so we got the front done then. As you can see, it sits quite a bit higher than before. See this amount of ground clearance. I mean, before those struts were so collapsed, we were not too far from tire rubbing on here. In fact, we were actually having a little bit of tire rub inside the inner fender here, but we have a ton of ground clearance now. Now, obviously the suspension's gonna settle a little bit, you know, after we drive it a few miles or stuff like that, the suspension is going to settle a little bit, but it's still going to be significantly higher than it was before. So that being said, now we'll go ahead and just move on to the back, start popping this. We'll probably scoot back over onto the other side, hit the passenger side rear tire first, and go ahead and start getting that one busted loose. Okay, so we've got everything I believe that we need to have soaked down with PB Blaster. We've got our brake caliper hanging over here. Always use a hanger on your brake caliper. Don't leave it hanging by the rubber lines. But what I wanted to point out was there is the wheel speed sensor on this one. This little line right here. And it's just a 10mm bolt running directly this direction. All right, or I think it's an 8mm actually. Let me see. Yeah, 8mm, 5/16, same difference. But yeah, it's running straight this direction on this one instead of straight down. So don't forget to unplug that. Otherwise, whenever you go to pop everything loose, you're probably going to pull that out, and then that's going to make for a bad day. Okay, so now that we've got the brake caliper out of the way, speed sensor, all that stuff that could be pulled on a little bit too hard and get damaged, that's all out of the way now. So this side's actually a little bit simpler than the passengers, or than the front sides rather. So on these sides here, or on the driver's side and passenger side rear of this, there's actually just 3 bolts that hold the top of the strut tower, 2 from the bottom, 1 from the top, and then a big 17mm. There should be, if your vehicle's still all put together, there should be a little cover across this. It's got a couple little 10mm bolts that actually hold it on to protect it from, you know, stuff like that. Those are actually gone on this already, so we don't have to worry about those. But you may have that little plastic deal on there. It's 2 10mm bolts, and then this is a 17mm over here that actually holds the strut onto the stud of the lower control arm. So we could disassemble a whole bunch of stuff on there and probably make it a little bit easier on ourselves, or it may just complicate it, I don't know. But what we're going to do is just take the 3 bolts loose from the top of the strut and the 17mm off the bottom, get this old one out of here, and then we'll just wrestle the new one in there after we get those assembled, because the rear struts, we actually have to use a set of coil spring compressors and disassemble the strut, install the 30mm puck at the top of a spacer or whatever you want to call it, and then reinstall them and remove the coil spring compressors. So we're going to get the old one out, and then we will go ahead and assemble. We'll probably just go ahead and assemble both sides, and then they'll be ready to go, and we'll get the new struts over here and kind of wrestle them into place. Yeah, I think that's going to be the easiest route, so let's just go with that. Okay, so I was actually mistaken on this. It's not a 17mm, it's a 15mm for this one here. So we'll go ahead and get that off there with the 15mm. Alright, so we've got the top bolts and the bottom bolt. The bottom bolt's already loose at 15mm. And we got the top bolts soaking in PB Blaster. We're going to let them soak overnight because, I mean, the rest of the stuff is still pretty rusty for me and up north. So we're still kind of recovering from dealing with all that. But as
So we're gonna let everything soak in a PB blaster overnight, and we'll pick this up tomorrow afternoon after we get home from the day job. So, all right, we'll see y'all then. All right, so following night, we're back at work on the old Volvo here. So we let the top bolts that hold the struts on the rear soak in PB blaster overnight. So hopefully that'll kind of benefit us a little bit. They're still a little corroded from saw roads up north and stuff, and all that moisture and whatnot. But I wanted to walk you back here and give y'all a look here at how you get to these bolts, because they're kind of hidden a little bit. So you're gonna go into the back of your XC70 here, and it's not the first little hatch that opens up, but it's the second one. They're gonna be right over there and right over there. And as you can see, you got to pull back the carpet a little bit, and then there's 2 bolts that come from the bottom side and hold it in. And then on the top side here, you have to take loose this this 1 bolt right here. As you can see, it's the same on the other side. So there's going to be 2 bolts from the bottom side that you got to undo, and 1 bolt from the top side that you got to undo. And then it should come loose. I mean, besides the 15mm bolt on the bottom of the strut that holds it in. So we busted that one loose last night on the passenger side here before we soaked everything down in PB blaster. So now we're going to go ahead and bust loose those 3 remaining bolts on the top side and see how much of a pain it's going to be to try to break these loose from this suspension while it's still all loaded up. So we'll keep that together with a little washer that's on it so we don't lose track of that. Probably leave that right in here somewhere. Stay safe in there. And then we'll move on to the underside and undo the other 2 bolts. Just a slight amount of galvanic corrosion there. Goodness. So we got our passenger side rear strut out there. As you can see, it's she's a little worse for the wear. Look at that thing. Goodness. That thing has seen some long miles on some salted roads, that's for sure. Corrosion like crazy on the top of it. So we'll get this one stuck off to the side, and we'll go ahead and get our passenger side rear new strut disassembled so we can put the 30mm spacer on top, and we'll show you all how we're going to do that with a set of just conventional coil spring compressors. I don't like using them any more than anybody else does, but you know, sometimes you just got no option. Okay, so we're over here working on compressing these coil springs so that we can take the top hat off and install our 30mm spacers. So I'm going to show you all how to use these super, you know, the sketchy coil spring compressors real quick, and we'll get these compressed and get them took apart so we can put our spacers in. All right, so what we're going to be doing is just like this here. Hook in the top side, adjust it down until you can hook in the bottom side. Get it tightened down a little bit. install our little safety locks there to keep it from slipping around too much. And the other one, unfortunately, you'd always want to kind of put them directly across from each other at the same height, but because these springs here with this big mounting surface and all that stuff, it kind of makes that about impossible. So instead, we're just gonna, you always want to space them apart from each other, but we're gonna have to space this one, instead of taking up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this one's only going to take up 4, but should be fine still. The most important part is having them directly across from each other. Alright, so we've got them spaced evenly like you can see. Now we'll slowly use our, where's that here? Our 3/4 inch wrench. We'll use our 3/4 inch wrench here. Slowly start tightening these up until it compresses the spring enough that we get some free, this frees up top here and starts, we get a little bit of play in it, and that means it's safe to be able to take the locking nut off the top of the head here that actually holds the coil spring together. So we'll speed this up a little bit. It's a little time consuming. Okay, so whenever you get it compressed enough, you'll see the top of it will start being able to free spin like that. That means you're ready to be able to take it off. You always want to tighten these up evenly, so I usually do like 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever turns of it, then go to the other side, then back and forth like that, alternating, and it compresses it nice and evenly, so you don't have to worry about anything bad happening, hopefully anyway. Now it may vary model to model. It's an 18mm at the top in our case here on this P2 XC70. If you're using an impact, you can probably get away with just hitting it real quick and being able to get this top nut loose. If you're not using an impact, you're going to have to get some kind of deep well that you can put a screwdriver through, or hold with a pair of vice grips or something, and put a small wrench or a crescent wrench or something like that on this top piece here to be able to hold the shaft still. So we're going to try to hit it with the impact here real quick. There we go, just like that. We're all set. Take our spring, set it over here, point it away from us in case anything does go wrong. It's able to, clear out and not take anybody out or any limbs out. Okay, so I have our kit here. That's our 30mm spacer that we showed you before. These kits, they do require a longer stud to be in the middle of the coil spring shaft here, or strut rather. So this is an attachment. You can see it's threaded on the one end, so it screws onto the existing main shaft and then extends it out. I would assume 30mm thereabouts. So this just screws down on there. From what I can tell, you really don't have to worry about it being super tight, because you're going to start spinning the shaft of the strut itself. So rather than trying to put vice grips on something and galling up some kind of surface or something like that, tighten it down. You'll feel it bottom out inside there, because obviously it only goes so far. And then whenever you tighten everything else back up and release that coil spring, it's going to put all sorts of pressure on this here, and it should hold those studs tight enough. You shouldn't have to worry about this backing out at all or anything like that. Like I said, it's gonna have a lot of pressure on it. and it's going to be bottomed out anyway, so it's not like you're going to have a very small amount of thread engagement or something. I mean, it's a solid inch that it's going to be threaded down onto there, so should be plenty of thread engagement on there to hold it still. So when it comes to these kits down here now, we do have to remove this rubber piece here. That's going to get replaced by the 30mm puck. So we're going to pull that off. If your struts are old, these will probably be pretty worn out. These are obviously brand new, so they don't have to worry about that at least. Stand our strut up. Go ahead and place that down on there. Now these do have a little portion there you can see where it locks into place on the end of the coil spring. You want to make sure you get that oriented correctly. So you just spin it on there and you'll feel it hit that end of the coil spring there, and you're in good shape then. So we're going to take our extension here and run it on down. And you can feel it bottom out for sure there. It's, you know, solid. We'll try to give it a little spin just to make sure it's 100% seated in there. Alright. We're all set on that. So now we'll take our top hat, existing top hat, and you'll see it's now the shaft is plenty long enough. It's not going to go all up down on there all the way, obviously, until you release the coil spring. Now I usually try to get it somewhat oriented in the direction it's going to be going. In this case, our mounting bolt on the bottom needs to be running pretty much parallel with these two bolt holes here, so you're going to want it facing that direction. You can spin it once you get it up in there, so you know it's really not that big of a deal, but I try to just, you know, get it oriented in the right direction just to start off with. So we're going to take our bolt again now, or nut rather. We'll get it started back on there. It's a nylock nut, so you'll only be able to screw it a certain way or a certain distance before it starts getting too tough to finger tighten. So we'll take our impact again and just run it on down. And then you're just going to want to double check and make sure that we have plenty of thread engagement on there. And I've counted about 5 threads over the top of the lock nut, and that was on the original installation too. So we're installed about that much on there now, and it should be good to go. I mean, if your nut's down on there, if that lock nut's down on there as far as it was from the factory installed top hat and everything, then you're going to be fine. It's going to be good to go. So as you can see, we're still a little loose because we haven't released the coil spring. That's all installed on there now. So we'll put our strut back down and go ahead and start releasing these coil spring compressors so we can get this thing all, you know, finished off. Again, you want to loosen it in even, you know, amounts side to side. You don't want to, you know, loosen one side up and then try to loosen the other one up all the way. You want to go back and forth, like the same way that you tightened it. Alright, so now we'll get our coil springs completely, or our spring compressors completely loosened up here. And there we go. Alright, that's all there is to it. That's a
30mm spaced out strut now. So it's I'd say it's in a little better shape than the original one. Yeah, just slightly. Alright, so we've already done off camera, we already did the other side. So now that those are all installed, we can go ahead and start getting them reinstalled on the rear of the vehicle. Alright, so now that we've got our coil springs all assembled and everything, before we put them back together, we do have a little spot right above the strut there. There's like a little pocket. Unfortunately, while we were up north and all that, it collected all kinds of grit and road salt and this, that, and the other, and so I blew it all out as best I could, but there's a little bit of you know, paint chippage and whatnot in there. We'll show you real quick before we paint it, but just got some random rattle can white here that we found up here in the shop, and we're gonna go ahead and coat it in there real quick, let that dry, just so we can make sure we protect that little, you know, hidden area in the future there. So as you can see, it's this little area right in here, in between the bottom of the floor pan here and the underneath of the vehicle is a little pocket, and it can collect all kinds of stuff. So we blew it out real good with the compressor, and now we're going to go ahead and just hit it with a little bit of rattle can white just to protect it in the future. Alright, so it's not going to be perfect under there, but it'll be a heck of a lot better for protection from everything than nothing at all. So we'll let that dry for a couple minutes, and then we'll start putting this strut back in here with the 30mm spacer included this time. Okay, so we've got our passenger side rear strut here. We're going to go ahead and wrestle this one in. We should be able to get it placed up in there fairly easy. And then we'll secure it with the 2 bolts from the bottom side first, and then we'll hit that one from the top side in the rear cabin area last. But first we gotta kind of wrestle it up in between here. It's gonna be a little tight. Okay, so we're about halfway there, getting this right rear strut back up in there. As you can see, we're using a floor jack to push on the bottom of the strut. We got our bottle jack holding the suspension down, and we're lining up the bolts over here now. But it's definitely a job getting this one back in there with the spacer on it. So we'll keep rolling, trying to finagle this thing back up in there, and we'll stop and show you the finished product once we actually get it up in there. Okay, so we finally ended up getting that side off. We ended up using the floor jack underneath the bottom of the strut. Another bottle jack right here with a piece of wood on top of it to shove the control arm and assembly and everything downwards. We got the coil spring compressors actually installed, trying to squeeze the spring together. And then we still ended up taking loose this upper trailing arm, whatever, here to give us a little wiggle room, as well as this one here on this side. So yeah, that one fought us quite a bit. So hopefully the other one will go a little bit smoother. But yeah, this the reinstall with these 30mm pucks on the top is definitely a little bit of a bear. So just be forewarned there. If you're doing this project on your own, you'll probably need a second person, extra set of hands to get it done. So we'll finish getting this one buttoned up, and then we'll head on over to the other side, the final side.
there's the final one out. Whew. She's just as corroded on top and everything as the last one. So yeah, the original Volvo Sax struts, probably from 2006. So probably gonna call it a night there. Gotta get up early for the day job tomorrow, unfortunately, so we'll call it a night. And then tomorrow, whenever we so tomorrow we'll continue on putting this final strut in with the spacer assembled at the top of it already. And we got our new parts in the mail, so we'll be checking those out tomorrow, open them up, make sure everything's good to go, get that stuff installed. And we're on the last leg of this project here, so stick with us. All right. All right, so we finally got the struts done completely, front and rear. The rears were a bear to get done. They really fought us, but we finally got them done there. And oh, that's like all kind of trash and shit in the background. Let me not do that. All right, so we finally got the struts done, front and rear. The rears were a bit of a pain. Those ones fought us pretty bad, but we ended up getting them done finally. You can see the ride height here. It's pretty decent. We got quite a bit of ground clearance on there now. Clearance tire to the fender. It's pretty good stuff. So got that done completely, and we did get our parts in the mail. So we got our sway bar end links for the front, because those were so frozen up that I had to cut the passenger side one off. And we got inner and outer tie rod ends. We're just gonna go ahead and replace those. They were pretty crusty looking, and the one on the passenger side, the outer tie rod end, I had to cut that also to be able to get it off. So we've got brand new inner and outer tie rod ends here, and we're gonna go ahead and slap those on there real quick. We'll show you what we got here in the mail, our care package from Rock Auto. So we've got our inner tie rod ends here, two of those obviously, outer tie rod ends, and our front sway bar end links here. Nice shiny new parts there. So we'll go ahead and we'll start on the passenger side here, and get the tire knocked back off, tire and wheel off, and we'll go ahead and start getting these brand new parts put on, and then it'll finally be about ready to drive again. We're just waiting on the new water pump to come in the mail so we can get it get that slapped on there real quick. But I mean, either way, we can drive it around the block, at least with the new suspension parts and everything on there, you know, get a feel for how it's gonna drive with all this new stuff. So we'll get right to it then. All right, so we got our brand new sway bar end link here from Euro Parts, Euro Parts. I don't know which one it is, but it's one of those European vehicles. We'll call it Euro Parts. Yeah, nice looking part there. Joints feel pretty good, so not too bad. We'll get that get this put in there. Yeah, there we go. So that's an interesting note. So they look identical, but the one that's meant to go on the sway bar side is actually slightly smaller. As you can see, it actually fits in there. this side does not. So this is meant for the top piece up here that bolts onto the strut. So no chance of getting them mixed up there. So we're lifting the strut up from this direction and then tilting the sway bar down from that direction to try to line these two up here, and it worked out perfect. So awesome. Awesome. We'll just torque it properly. 14 ugga-duggas. Alright, that part's done. We'll move on to the inner and outer tie rod ends. Alright, so first thing we got to do, take this this little clamp off here. We're going to put some PB Blaster on here. We've been soaking these ever since we had it apart, and hopefully a little assistance. Alright, so as you can see, the nut in here on the inner tie rod end is just rounded off. It's super rusty. So instead we're just going to go ahead with the death wheel, hack it off, then we should be able to get it out of there. So just always wear eye protection. As you can see, super rusty. Those threads are pretty well galled up there, so chances of getting that out of there slim to none. So that's the old one out. We just need to get the inner out of there. Alright, so we've got the other piece of the inner tie rod end busted loose out of the steering rack there, and so what we're going to do, obviously whenever you're doing inner and outer tie rod ends, you really want to go and get it professionally aligned afterwards. In the meantime though, for now, just so we can drive it and drive it to an alignment shop, we are going to just be doing the thread counting method here. Alright, so basically what you do, this piece here is the threaded end, is the piece we cut, the other end of the piece we cut, right? And it was like this in the vehicle, okay? And obviously, whenever we cut that with the cutoff wheel, we probably took out maybe one thread worth of material from it. But other than that, it's pieced together exactly like it was, right? But the most important part, where you really want to count your threads and everything, is in here. You bust this loose. Out of the outer tie rod end. It's usually a little long-winded. So that's the other half of your threads, right? So now, granted, as long as your new tie rod end is identical to your old one, which it seems to be, besides the hex portion up here, but the length seems to be exactly the same, right? So then what you want to do is get you a little screwdriver or pointer, anything like this, and you're going to count how many threads there was inside the outer tie rod end. And that tells you exactly how far into your outer tie rod end that the inner tie rod end was screwed, right? So then that way, when you go to put the two new ones back together, when you screw it in, say it's 37 threads in, right? So you screw it down to 37 threads, and then you run your lock nut on down. Obviously this isn't 37 threads, but you get the idea. You run your lock nut down, tighten that up, and now that holds it in there 37 threads into there, or however much it was. Like I said, this isn't going to be perfect, but it will get you by for the time being, and it'll get you to where you can drive it to an alignment shop or something like that. So, all right, tech tip for the day. Okay, so we're back again. It's actually the following day. We ended up having to stop last night because we ran into a bit of a pickle. New tie rod end, inner tie rod, I should say. Whenever you screw it down, you need a really thin open end wrench to be able to tighten it down all the way, right? Well, my old 1.25 inches here, I'm not sure what that is in millimeters. It's pretty big though. 30 millimeters, somewhere around there. My big 1.25 inch wrench that I'm going to use to tighten this down is actually, as you can see, it's a little bit thicker than the end of the inner tie rod. So there's no way for me to be able to get it on there to actually tighten this down all the way whenever we go to screw it into the steering rack down there. So solution was going to be just, you know, make it another custom tool. This is just an old Taiwan steel wrench here. So I was just gonna, you know, bust out the old death wheel and make these a little bit smaller so it'll actually fit on there. But wouldn't you know it, the old Chicago Electric death wheel here, the button actually broke off on the side of it. So out with the old, in with the new. So today, after getting out of the day job, we ran down to the old Harbor Freight, got us a new one of these Bauer 8 amp 11,500 RPM corded angle grinders. So we'll see how this one does. Just gotta throw the wheel on it real quick, and then we can get this trimmed up to where we can actually tighten down this inner tie rod and move on to the next step. Okay, so we're just opening up this new angle grinder here, cut off wheel, whatever you want to call it. Instruction booklet. There we go. Nothing else in there, I believe, that we need. This is the guard and the handle. Alright, so this one obviously with the paddle wheel or paddle handle here for the switch instead of the switch on the side, which I do like. It's a lot less fatigue on the finger holding that. We have our nice handle to screw into the side of it. Oh, that is an improvement there. The quick attach and release guard to go on it, and then our little spanner wrench here to be able to tighten it down. So all in all, seems to be a pretty nice little unit there for the price. I think this one was 45 and some change here in Florida prices, so not too bad for the price, not at all. Okay, so we've got our wrench here all modified. Still smoking a little. As you can see, it definitely fits the hex end of the inner tie rod now, so we shouldn't have any problem tightening this up.
you know, every once in a while you just got to make a custom tool like that. I got a whole mess of them for jobs like this where, you know, it was easier just to modify an old tool than going and spending, you know, extra money on wrenches that you're going to use once in a blue moon. So, you know, nothing wrong with that. I mean, obviously we wouldn't ruin some, you know, super expensive wrench set or anything like that, but, you know, an old Taiwan steel wrench, you know, no huge loss there, so it's all good. But this should work perfect for what we needed to. Now we'll go on ahead and get this inner tie rod put in, and slip the boot on, recount our threads so we can get it as close to the as closely aligned as possible, and then we'll be good to go ahead and connect it up to the steering knuckle here. Alright, so just wanted to make a quick note of this. We are reusing the original boots that were on the inner tie rod ends there. And just a quick note, for whatever reason, Volvo in their infinite wisdom here decided to use some of these one-time use, I don't know what you want to call them, pinch clamps, whatever. In the irrigation world we call them Oetiker clamps, but I think they're all about the same deal. Y'all know how these work. That's stupid. Tie rod ends are one of those things that should be serviceable, so why would you put a clamp that's one-time use on there? Or, you know, if it is removable, it's a hell of a pain in the butt to get it out of there. So anyway, we will be replacing it with just a normal hose clamp here, and that way if we need to take these off in the future to be able to do anything with them, it's just a simple flat blade, or I think it's a 5/16 bolt head there. So yeah. Well, I'm thinking about it here. I'd said in earlier in the video that the new struts didn't come with any sort of a holder for the wheel speed sensor wire on here. They actually did. These little deals right here. Let me get one out of there and we can actually see it a little better. These little deals right here, as you can see, it's got our little holder for the wheel speed sensor in it, and it's got a couple little tabs on it that are going to push into the side of the what do you call it, the strut here. There's actually a couple little holes on there for it, and then this will be the little holder that holds our wheel speed sensor on there. So like I said, there's two little holes you can see right here, 1 and 2, and this is just going to pop right into there like so. Maybe, hopefully. Okay, so on second thought, these kind of suck. They don't stay in there, they push in, but then it just pulls right back out. These little tabs that's supposed to hold it on there are next to useless. So, I don't know, we'll come up with something else. Some other way to fasten it on there or something, or possibly I can get some other holders or something for it. I don't know, we'll come up with something. But these are not really doing much there. I have no confidence that those won't just completely fall off going down the road, so we won't be using those at all. Okay, but either way, so we finally got our inner and outer tie rod ends on there. So now we can go ahead and lock this down.
soon as I remember what size that was. That size. Okay, so that's on there as tight as that's going to go now. So that is our inner and outer tie rods tightened down all the way. Brand new sway bar end link on the front. We'll figure out something with that eventually. I think that is pretty much it. This side is good to go. All right, so we're all finished up with that one. That is new struts front and rear, 30mm spacers front and rear, brand new inner and outer tie rod ends on the front, as well as sway bar end links on the front. So should make it drive a heck of a lot better. Not to mention, look, a heck of a lot cooler there. Yeah, look at that ground clearance. So tomorrow, as you can see, it's nighttime already. So tomorrow we will get it out in the sun and take a look at what she really looks like. We still were waiting on the water pump to come in the mail, so that one will probably be in a different video. Probably do that one more like a DIY video or something like that for instructional purposes. But we'll go ahead and, like I said, get her out in the sun and see what she really looks like tomorrow. And show y'all how this 30mm lift turned out there. So I think it looks great. So we'll see it in the sun tomorrow. All right, so it's the following day.
we managed to get the Volvo out here with a little bit of daylight left so we can get a good look at it now. But we're still waiting on that the water pump to come on in the mail, so we'll get that replaced in a separate video later on this week. Get that uploaded so y'all can see that. Like I said, we'll probably do that one like a DIY style video, but for now the modifications are done to the old Volvo. So this is the final product here. That is significantly better ground clearance and wheel to fender clearance, or tire to fender clearance I should say, than before. That is not too shabby at all. Yeah, she definitely rides a lot stiffer. I will say that we're definitely gonna have to figure out a way to get it aligned or align it a little better. She's setting a little pigeon-toed right now, but we'll get that figured out. But for now, we got the modifications all finished, revamped the suspension, lifted a little bit. So now the proud owners of a lifted Volvo wagon. I mean, who doesn't love a good lifted Volvo wagon, you know? So so like I said, we'll go ahead and get this video out to y'all so y'all can see what's up. And then in the next video we'll be replacing that water pump. But for now, I'm very satisfied with the product. Hope y'all enjoyed the content. I hope y'all enjoyed the project, and there'll be more to come. All right, we'll see y'all in a little while. Y'all have a good one out there.